Hello friends, I'm Pastor Oleg and we'll continue our Revelation studies as we compare the trumpets of the book of Revelation, chapters 8 and 9, with the plagues, with the last 7 plagues. And in the previous program I already referred to the correspondence although they, as we traditionally believe, they belong to different time periods. The trumpets are historical and the seals are eschatological, and yet we could see that they are pretty much parallel and more than parallel. They are dealing with the same issues in every situation, and in every situation the same key words have been used. So that means that they duplicate each other, they support each other. Those are the 10 witnesses. The Bible always requires 10 witnesses for witnessing, for a prophecy. So here we have those 2 witnesses. And in I promised last time to address the interpretation of those, and I already started as I referred to the first trumpet as the fall of Jerusalem in the year 70, and as I referred to the second trumpet, the mountain burning with fire that was thrown into the sea of water. The sea of water are the people, and the great mountain is the Rome. It was the Roman Empire that was judged. That's how God works. Always in the Bible, first he punishes his people. His people at that time was, and it's interesting. Again, in the previous program I mentioned that the first is like the last. So what is the last? What was the last for his Old Testament people, for the Jews, as the fall of Jerusalem was a beginning for his new people, for the Christians, for the Christianity. It was the time of a great outreach of the gospel message. Okay, so let's continue. The third angel sounded, and the star fell from heaven, burning with fire. The name of the star is wormwood. It fall on the springs of water, and so on. And again, friends, I've written articles, I've written a book on it, and there is many material, so I won't go in details on it. But this is the time of apostasy. The wormwood in the Bible is a name of the harlot, is a name of a promiscuous wife. Look at the Proverbs. I think it's chapter 5, but you'll find it otherwise in other places in the Bible. That what and remember, friends, that all those trumpets, of course, they correspond with the 7 churches. The 7 churches present the inner situation at the church, but the 7 trumpets represent how God affects the world by means of those 7 churches that are not necessarily pure and perfect, and the impact on the world is correspondingly is not always so good. So that's the time of apostasy. That the 4th angel sounded, verse 12, and a sort of the sun was struck, a sort of a moon, and a sort of the stars, so that a sort of them were darkened. Friends, as we are talking about the apostasy, as we are talking about the star that is wormwood, remember that it only fell on the third of the waters, right? And when the Bible is talking about 1/3 in the historical sense, it doesn't mean that just one random third. That's a certain part of the world. That's a certain part in this particular case of the church. And as we look at history, we related to the Roman Church, to the Western Church. As we look at the fourth angel, he is dealing with what we call the Eastern Byzantine Empire. That's where you see, in place of the Western Empire, with the collapse of the pagan Rome, there was no king anymore. There were numerous kings and field commanders, whatever you might call them, but in the eastern part of the empire, in the New Rome, in the Constantinople, in the empire that was built, southeast of Western Europe, this empire remained for another 1,000 years until it was utterly destroyed by the Muslim invasions. So that's the situation, that this angel reflects the situation in the East, in the Byzantine Empire, the darkening of the sun and the stars. It is also a reference to the apostasy among the kings and the princesses of this great Byzantine kingdom. You know, friends, my Western listeners and viewers and readers don't know much about this great Byzantine Empire, but I come from Russia, as you can tell by my accent probably, and I grew up in the part of the world, and that's huge. It's still the biggest, where the Byzantine Empire is famous, where the Byzantine Empire had left its unmistakable trace on the European, on the Slavic civilization. So it is not something that was happening in the corner. You can read about it. The fifth angel sounded, a star fallen from another star. And as we read about the stars in the Bible, friends, it is usually, like people look at some meteorite or whatever, and in the last days, in eschatological context, it might be really some sort of heavenly body hitting the earth or whatever. The Bible talks about this, also about those things as physical events, but in a historical sense, in a historical reading of this trumpet, of the fifth trumpet, we are dealing with a historical event, and we are dealing with a symbolic language. And we know, friends, that the opening or the sounding of the fifth trumpet brought up the new religion with its charismatic leader. The star in the Bible is usually a reference to a charismatic leader, such as Alexander the Great, or in this case, I believe it was Muhammad, who inspired the southern world to follow monotheistic religion, and it was definitely, a great progress for the pagan society, but at the same time it was a threat for both Christian West and Christian East. And Christian East, as I said, was not able to resist this new power. And in chapter 9 we pretty much read about what this new religion, and it was not just a religion, it was, of course, right away from day one, it was a military force, it was an Islamic state, if you wish, from day one. It was causing lots of wars, lots of 13 that is well described in chapter 9, and as we read here about different time periods within this trumpet, as a historian, I look back. I will not address it right now, as it is a long topic, and as I write about it in my articles, and if you friends want to receive this material, I will email it to you absolutely for free. But now I'm just trying to give this overview of those trumpets and the plagues, and see how they help to explain each other, how we could be standing on both feet, in other words, looking at the testimonies of the two witnesses rather than at the testimony of only one witness. So see, when we look at, let's say, the last events, at the last 7 trumpets only, we are limiting ourselves. You know, like if you put one dot, you can make as many lines through it as you wish. But if you put 2 dots, you have one straight line. No other options. And the two witnesses, they help us to keep things straight. Okay, so the 6th angel sounded, and I heard the voice from the 4 horns of the golden angels, and this is where the 4 angels who were bound at the great river Euphrates were released. Very interesting, very interesting. You know, we already mentioned that this is the same that the last or the 6th plague accomplishes, releasing those angels at Euphrates River and initiating and sparking events that lead to Armageddon. It is also very interesting that we read about so okay, this is happening clearly at the end of the trumpets and at the end of the plagues. But interestingly enough, look at this, you know, look at chapter 7. At chapter 7, we have this angel. He cried with a loud voice to the 4 angels to whom it was granted to harm the earth and the sea, saying, "Do not harm the earth and the sea or the trees till we have sealed the servants of our God on their foreheads." Okay, so it's interesting that those 4 winds, or those 4 angels, because angels are the spirits, and they are also referred to as the winds, as the mighty winds. Those mighty winds are not yet released while the sealing is in process. What does it mean? What does it mean to us, friends? It means that whatever took place in preparation as for those coming events, whatever took place as a sealing, and whatever has taken place in history also as the trumpets, is yet to be fulfilled in the releasing of those 4 winds or 4 angels as a signal, the outpouring of the last 7 plagues. So you see this key verse, this key text about those 4 angels and about those 4 winds that are bound at the river Euphrates, friends. They are there for a reason. They are indication. They are to show that what has taken place before historically will be repeated on a fast scale and on a new level as those winds are unsealed once again at the time of the end. You know, friends, even the most, maybe I had to start with it, but let me bring it up now. Even the most historical prophecy of the book of Revelation, the prophecy of the seven churches, and I believe the seven churches are the seven time periods that cover all this Christian era from the day of the Pentecost in the year 34 until the second coming of our Lord Jesus Christ, and they correspond with the seven seals and with the seven trumpets, just the history of the humankind presented from four different perspectives, just as the life of our Lord Jesus has been presented from four different perspectives by the four gospel writers. So, but even this prophecy that is, that I've been advocating for decades now as a historical and not just a local or a gap or whatever, or some symbolic prophecy, even this historical prophecy suggests and implies that there is yet an eschatological fulfillment. What do I mean? Look at this, friends. It's very clear. The seven churches that follow one another are seven different church periods, as we know, with the emphasis, with the highlights in each period on Catholicism, on papacy, on the Protestantism, on the persecuted church, on the apostolic church, on the revived church, on the indifferent church. So in each time period, a particular spirit, a particular angel, a particular church prevails, right? Interestingly enough, in the last days, they're all there. Yes, in the last days, the emphasis is on Laodicean. That's what we are. That's what the world is. It's Laodicean. It doesn't care. Well, it doesn't care until the seals start opening, and they are now starting opening. But in reality, every church period that had taken its place already, that is the past. It's not our past, it's our present. Don't we have a Protestant church that is prophetically related to one of the churches? Don't we have papacy? Don't we have an persecuted church? Friends, they are all there. In the last days, it is an accumulative event. In the last days, they are all there. Remember, even this such a prophecy from Daniel chapter 2 that implies just straightforward historical fulfillment. The stature, the golden head of Nebuchadnezzar and Babylon, the chest of silver, and so on. When the rock hits, what happens? The rock hits the feet of the statue. The rock hits in the last days. And you would expect that, it would only be a clay and the iron that would be, mixed or dismissed or whatever, But as we read that the gold and the silver and the bronze and the iron and the clay, they all got mixed together at this time. So somehow, friends, they're all present. Somehow, even this straightforward historical prophecy, as solid as a rock, it also points that at the time of the end, all of those metals are somehow present. Friends, this is how the Bible gives us a hint that we are to read about the fall of Babylon, that we read in the Old Testament as events yet in the future, that we are to read about the fall of Jerusalem, another great fall, as the events of the future, that we are to read about the day of the Lord that is clearly historical and presented in the Old Testament and in the Old Testament prophecies, and have been fulfilled in different dramatic events of that time period. They are yet to take place in the closing chapters of history. That's what we understand. That's what we do intuitively and traditionally, and rightly so. But the Bible just pushes us to go this way. So, friends, let me just quickly finish with the 7 last plagues, as I promised that I give a quick overview in this program, and they're quite easy to understand. They're quite literal, in fact, because they are not happening in long time periods. They are not symbolic. They are pretty much, there is a certain degree of symbolics here, but this time we read it much more straightforwardly than, let's say, the trumpets that have both historical and eschatological connotation. So the first one, as we have seen already, that's as Deuteronomy 28 explains, that the first response on behalf of God as it comes to the punishing people for the complete abundance of the covenant and of the God covenant, it's a plague. It's a plague. And that's, don't make mistake about it. That's what the seals are all about, and that's what comes with the last plagues also. There is also a correspondence between those, but I will not talk about it right now. So that's the first one. Went and poured out his bowl upon the earth, and the fall and loathsome sore came upon men. So we looked into it. The second angel, I think now previous program, the second angel poured out his bowl on the sea, and it became blood, as for dead men, and every living creature in the sea died. We looked at the historical fulfillment of this mountain burning with fire, and we've seen Rome as falling into the sea of those surrounding nations. But this time, friends, there is no need to seek some symbolic interpretation. That's, I believe, pretty much literal, be it a volcano or a comet or whatever, but something makes the life, something brings the life in the sea to an end. And that's quite dramatic. The third angel poured out his bowl on the rivers and springs of water, and they became blood. Okay, in the previous, in the historical section, we read about the same, contaminating the rivers and the sources of water, but we are talking about symbolic implication as the false teaching that contaminated the pure gospel. This time, friends, it is a contamination, a literal contamination of the waters, because the symbolic, the spiritual contamination has taken place long before. Now it is a literal contamination that we are talking about. but read some more, study some more. I just given you some highlights, friends, on this, and I think it is so important in nowadays. It is for a reason that the Lord locked you up in your apartment, in your home, that you could look around and see where we are, and as I said, as the historical, and that's why they are necessary, as the historical seals have brought us to the breaking of the eschatological seals, or breaking of the first eschatological seal. It is especially a time for us, friends, to reflect on it, to be drawn closer to the Lord, and to be wise. To be wise, not to just reject what the Bible gives us as a good guide for the last events that precede the outpouring of the last plagues. But let me finish with the plagues and with this program. The fourth angel poured out his bowl on the sun, and power was given to him to scorch men with fire. Okay, if in the historical fulfillment it was what? It was affecting, it was a prophecy, it was a prediction about the apostasy on behalf of the sun and the stars, which are in the Bible the king or the emperor and all the royalties, the princes. This time, friends, those are quite literal events. The sun is acting, and it's acting in a such way that people don't like it. The fifth angel poured out his bowl on the throne of the beast, and the kingdom became full of darkness, and they gnawed their tongues, and they blasphemed God of heaven because of their pains and their sores, and did not repent of their deeds. Remember, friends, in historical fulfillment in the trumpets, that was the release of this great new religious and military power, this Islamic power that was compared to the smoke that darkened the skies. And there were locusts, those little but many warriors that would cause pain and suffering in people. That's what we looked at as warriors. This time, friends, this time we are dealing again with what seems to be a plague. And I just want to, for a minute, to take it as an opportunity to illustrate how this parallel reading, the reading of the two witnesses, of both the witnesses of the angel of the plagues and the angel of the trumpets, how they help us to, gain a better understanding of what's going on and what's going to happen. For instance, as we read about those locusts in Revelation 8, right? In Revelation 9, forgive me, we, as I said, we read about them symbolically, and we magnify them from the size of, little creatures to the size of the mighty warriors, great in numbers. In this case, friends, those small agents remain small and maybe even grow smaller as they cause the sores and pains. And if we look at those locusts now as the smallest living creatures that are attacking mankind in these days, we'll be given lots of interesting hints on what's going on and what is yet to happen, and maybe even on the length of this plague, as as the historical length of this plague is clearly outlined there. But you know what, friends, this historical prophetic periods, they are based on literal days, right? It's we are told that these locusts are given power over the people for 5 months. Okay, so based on 5 months, we extended to 150 prophetic years, and rightly so, as we are dealing with a historical period. But friends, then don't forget the very 5 months. As we look at the greater fulfillment, as we look at the typological fulfillment, then we have to recognize that the first type, that the 5 months are real. It's not imaginable. It's not just a comparison. So that means, to me, at least, friends, I understand. And of course, the Lord is sovereign. He can shorten whatever periods they might be. But to me, it looks like there is an indication in the locusts, the helpful indication on some magnifying glass that is provided by the Bible for us to look at the fifth plague in Revelation 16. Okay, friends, I think I will leave it here for now. I will not touch on the last trumpet and on the last seal, as they are taking us to the very, very time of the end, and we are not there yet. We have work to do. We have seals to go through and to get sealed. And as the Lord is opening the seals, He is also opening opportunities for us, friends, to reach out. As He closed the doors and as He locked you up, He opened so many doors for you to reach out to your neighbor, to your friend, to your relative, even to the people you don't know. You have so many doors open now, as the world is now listening. But let me finish with this. In Revelation 8, we are told about those thunders. And John was about to write them down, but the angel told him, do not write it down, what the 7 thunders had spoken. And I'm wondering why. Friends, I told you that the 7 plague testimony has a pair, has a second witness. Those are the trumpets. What about the 7 seals? What about the 7 seals? Does it have a pair? Yes, it does. Yes, it does. And it's the 7 thunders. Why is it then that the 7 thunders were not allowed to be recorded by John? I think it's for a reason, friends. I think it's for a reason. You see what's happening now. When the plagues are coming, everybody knows those are the plagues. When the seals are being opened, very few people realize that the seals been opened. But everybody hears what? The thunder. It was like with Apostle Paul on the way to Damascus, when the Lord stopped him on his way, when the Lord addressed him, Paul, or Saul at that time, he could hear the voice of Jesus, but other people could only hear the thunders. That was the same with Jesus' baptism. He heard the voice of the Father, and other people heard just the voice of the thunders. Yes, friends, the seven seals, they do have a second witness. You can apply to the seven trumpets as the second witness if you wish. You can apply to the seven churches as a second witness as you wish. But there are seven, but there is a direct, structurally, in the book of Revelation, there is a direct pair, there is direct second witness to the seven seals, and this is the voice of the seven thunders. And I think the reason why it is not recorded is to show that in the last days will be just like it's always been, that some people would hear just the thunders and they will be scared and they will not see what's going on, and they will not allow God to put His seal on their heart, the seal of His divine salvation. And there will be people who would hear not just the voice, the rumbling voice of a thunder, but the prophetic, quiet voice of Jesus Christ, who is telling us how He is opening the seals to shake the world and to place this seal on our heart. May the Lord bless you, and may He place this seal of salvation upon your heart, and may He make you hear more than just the rumbling voice of some dangerous thunders around us. God bless you, friends.